All right, and this is where we'll end up starting in just a minute. But the plan today is almost the entire time in fact, probably the entire time, I'll be assigning the research paper, briefly touching on all of the elements of the research assignment. I can stand up while I talk. But I'm going to stand up right now while I get to, because in a few moments I'll be sitting for basically the entire class in front of this computer and taking us through the assignment on PowerPoint, or not PowerPoint, but on Microsoft Word. You on Monday and Tuesday we're supposed to turn in your essay 3s, and I'm still working on grading the essay, the previous 2 essays for English 1302, but I'm almost done with the one before that, and then I'll start grading the next one, and it's a really quick grade. So I should be done with those by probably Thursday. I will end up having to grade on Friday and Saturday, maybe even Sunday, you guys' essays, the essay 3s. But I'm going to try to get through those as fast as humanly possible, because I really don't like to grade when spring breaks hit. I'm not going to say grades end up being lower when I have to grade when I should be free, but it's totally possible. Or I'm like resenting every essay that pops up. And I'm like, this essay's stupid. I have to grade on spring break and do 50. No, I don't really do that, I'm sure, but you never know, it's possible. So I'll be grading you guys probably starting on Friday and then maybe finishing up on Sunday. I hope it doesn't take that long, but it may. Also, at some point, I'm pretty sure that me and my wife are going to go see the movie Get Out,
Same.
which we desperately want to see.
I actually might go today.
In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if that movie got more money. If that movie got more money the second weekend than the first, because I think it won that weekend when it came out. But then I feel like it's almost one of those Inception movies. People want to see it again, and everybody who's heard it exists wants to go see it, because they're like, "Whoa, that movie's good. Okay, I'm gonna go see it." Same with Logan, I've heard, but you know, everybody says Logan is really good. Wolverine movie.
Oh.
Okay, well you're weird, but that's okay. Because I don't know, it's just something. It's something amazing, like, you know, that somebody's made, like Jordan Peele is like uniquely positioned, I guess, in Hollywood as being a guy who was the second half of Key and Peele, the comedy group. And everybody knows, you know, Key. If you don't, if you've seen that substitute teacher video where the guy's mispronouncing all the students' names, it's really funny. Have anybody seen that? You ever seen that substitute teacher guy? Yeah, A.A. Ron. That was really funny. But I listened to an interview with Jordan Peele, who actually, this is the first movie he's ever directed. And he says, imagine it as like the horror version of Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. Or if you saw the more recent one with Bernie Mac, I think, Guess Who? If you ever saw that movie? Where she ends up having like a white boyfriend, I think. No. It was like the opposite version. There was an old version of that film where it was a white family and she brings home a black boyfriend, and they're like, what? And it's essentially, he said, this is like the horror version of that. And he said, because his mom is white and his wife is white, Jordan Peele's is, that he's always been in this position where he's known a lot of white people, and he says that there's this thing, he says, the white people have always asked him since this movie's come out, like, is it really like that to be a black person around white people? And he says, yes, it is, like 100%. He also said that he said there's all these people out there who are well-meaning white people, like they mean well, but nonetheless are accidentally racist and have no idea, or at least have these racist tendencies. And I'm really curious about this movie, because I don't know, I always love the stuff that really examines like these looked over societal issues. Really exciting. So I might end up seeing that, and that may take up some time. And I'm going to go see Logan on Tuesday with my daughter, but I think by then I'll be done grading. So that's the plan grading-wise. I'm going to assign this research paper today, but I do want to warn you all that the only reason I'm assigning it the day before spring break is because if there are people in the room who work, and you work a lot, and you know you're going to have that free time from not having to go to class to work on some stuff, I want you to have the opportunity to be able to work on it. However, my preference is that you all will not even look at it on spring break. Did I mention to you You got me. Did I mention to you guys the British study that was done where they asked teachers in the UK what they did on holiday break? Did I mention that to you guys?
No.
So they asked these teachers what they did on holiday break. They said, when you got out for Christmas, did you spend your time working on school materials, or did you completely take it off and just enjoy the time? And the people who said that they enjoyed the time, they reported having higher levels of satisfaction when they came back, lower levels of stress. But the ones who said they worked straight through the holidays felt like they were constantly behind, could never catch up. They were depressed about their situation. They were highly stressed. So my suggestion is, if you got a break from school, take it. But if you work so much that the only time you can get stuff done is on spring break, I wanted people to have that possibility as well. So my preference, take that break, but if you can't, you just need the time, go ahead and use it. And keep in mind too that the very first day we come back from spring break, we have the grading conference. So people who were here for peer review day, they already signed up for the grading conference. People who were not here for peer review day, did not get to. So I'm going to pass this around. I'm going to start over here with Bryant, and you will sign up for a 3-minute slot in the class that day, and the only time you'll come is for those 3 minutes. Now I also have this form here. I call it the overflow form in case you ran out of space, but also on here is a column that says, I will not be attending grade conference, and you write your name below, and there's no time associated. It's just a number, like you're the first or second person to put your name down. You can do that if you meet these 2 criteria. 1, you don't live in Greenville. Because if you live in Greenville, you can get here fairly easily. Unless you convince me that you live far enough out in the country that I can Google map it and it says you live 20 minutes away despite still living in Greenville, which I used to live in a place like that, so I understand. Also, if you only come for 1 class today. So if you only come for 1 class, and it's mine, and you live at least 15 to 20 minutes away, then you can write your name on this list here, and you won't have to come, and I'll give you your grade sheet the next time we meet, just right after class. And I won't have time to go over everything with you really detailed, but I can at least hand it to you, and you can sign it, and then I'll give you your half, and I'll keep my half. And that would be the case. Now, I can confirm both of those things by getting on Campus Connect, looking at your address and your schedule, so don't write it down unless you really meet those criteria. Somebody raised their hand, I thought I saw. Yes?
What day is this?
This is going to be Monday, March 20th. So the very day we come back from spring break is going to be a very light day where you find out where your grades are at. Then we move into talking about how to approach aspects of the research paper after that. But today, right after this, we're going to be dealing exclusively with signing the research paper. I'm going to start this grade conference sheet, have its way working around. I'm going to leave the one that's the overflow list, the one where you don't think you're going to be able to make it. I'll put that up there, and you can come sign it after class if you want to, but I'm just going to pass the one that has the times on it around. It's going to make its way in a horseshoe fashion around the room and finally end up back with Emily. So if you've already signed up, just pass it along, and if you haven't, go ahead and sign up for a time. Let's see. Now, if you were not here on Tuesday, or you were not here on Monday, then you did not sign up on this list, and you'll need to sign up. But if you were here on Monday, you likely already did. Oh crap, I think did I hand you, oh no, I gave you the right one. I thought I handed you the wrong one because I saw another 1301 class sitting right there. I may have to take frequent breaks to take sips of things because it's a lot of talking for me today. A lot of talking. And speaking of a lot of talking, I've had a couple complaints through emails. I can't remember if it was about this class specifically, but of people's talking it in the way of them being able to listen. I can't remember if it's in here or not. But so just keep in mind that if you're kind of chitter-chattery like this, especially this day, try to keep that down to a nothing. That way, that, you can ask questions, of course. Questions are fine. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. Especially as I'm going along, you're going to probably have a lot of questions. But really kind of keep that low so that other people get distracted, I guess, by the talking. And so the problem is I'm so good at ignoring it because I've had a child for so long. In case CPS ever wants to look at this, that's actually not true. I'm just being funny. It's a little joke. I pay lots of attention to my child. So you do get used to tuning other people's kids out, though, because of church, which is something that I have learned to do. As much as I try to tune out babies, though, it's just they cry. Take your kid out of there. There's a room for that. You know? Here we go. So I'm actually going to, because I haven't made paper copies of this, and I told you that was the case for Essay 3 moving forward, I'm going to show you exactly what you would do to start finding the research assignment and start reading it. So here we go. I'm going to go ahead and sign in as myself. I might have just made a mistake in typing. Yes, I did. I felt it. But I'm also going to sign in as Magnus Baraka at the same time so you can see what a student will see. I think I just messed up again. Dadgummit. Okay. So you'll want to go first to our class, 1301. Once you've gone there, you're going to want to click Assignments. And you'll immediately see that we have the research paper planning assignment already exists. I've provided it in two different formats, Microsoft Word format or PDF. Word documents I'm actually more comfortable with, so that's what I'm going to open. But many of you may be more comfortable with PDF because they open on any device, really. Very rarely is there a device that won't open a PDF file. So on your phones, even if you open it on your phone instead of somewhere else, I've noticed that if you click a PDF link on your phone, as long as you have iBooks downloaded on your iPhone, it's the only one I know. It opens up on Safari and it shows it, but then for a second it says open in iBooks, and you click that and it'll open it in iBooks and it'll stay there forever, at least until you get a new phone. So you don't have to worry about clicking the link every time to see the assignment. You can actually have it saved there and it'll stay there. Or you can save it to a computer like I'm going to. Your Google Chrome will likely save it somewhere automatically into whatever Google Chrome downloads folder it is, or your computer's downloads folder. So might be mixed in with all kinds of stuff. Me, I have it set to ask me where do I want to download this. And usually I'll go to my documents folder, find whatever folder I have for this class. So 1301 2017 spring. I'll make a new folder for research paper. And then I'll save the assignment there. Once I've done that, and this is usually what you'll just see, is it'll pop up in the corner. Click it to open it. And after waiting for a computer to do what computers do, it's up. Now, I don't know if you want to do this. If you want to be able to highlight things on your own version, you can totally do that. And one of the things you'd probably want to do is enable editing. But keep in mind, if you change aspects of the assignment to other things that you wish they were, I won't let you suddenly start following those instead of what I have. So keep your changes to a minimum. I don't like seeing the changes, though, so I don't see that little bar, so I actually change that. I'm going to do one page here. I'm going to zoom in so we can all see. Is that big enough we can see it? Please tell me it's up there. For a second, I thought you were yeah, it's been on freeze the whole time, Nichols. You forgot to, which I'm known to do. So it's assigned today. Each due date is going to be by 11:59 p.m. on Blackboard for the date listed, assuming it's a Blackboard submission. So there's a number of different steps in this assignment. First one, choose a research topic. That's easy. There's nothing wrong there at all. Now, then we're going to have research paper planning is going to be due. I'll explain what that is in a bit, but that's going to be week 10, day 2. So the first thing you'll have to turn in, on a normal semester like a fall, they wouldn't have a spring break, so you'd have 2 weeks to get it done. But since we have spring break, you actually have 3 weeks until we turn in even the first aspect of this assignment. So you've got a lot of time to look. And that's basically telling me what your topic is and your sources. The week after that, you're going to be turning in an annotated bibliography for the research paper. I'll get to that later. Then we'll have peer review. It'll be our last peer review in class on week 12, day 2, which is, as you guessed it, the day the paper is due. And like the Essay 3 peer review, you did not have to bring your articles with you. Then I'll grade it and return it to you by week 14, day 1, perhaps sooner. The revisions are due, and I always leave it because in the fall semesters it's always week 14, day 1, but you could turn it in week 14, day 2 revisions because that's the last date of revisions, so that's fine. So you can change that to a 2 if you want to for your personal use, but I won't be. And the presentation over your research paper will be in class on week 15, days 1 and 2. So from that point on, I mean, that covers the whole rest of the course. From now to then, we'll just be working on research stuff from here to the end of the class. Now it says Blackboard steps 2, 3, 5, and 7 will be turned into Blackboard. So the planning, the annotated bibliography, the research paper, and the revisions. And the format, it's just like the same format of all the papers so far. 12-point times Roman double space, 1-inch page margins. Have a heading at the top with your name, date, assignment, class. Have the last name and page number on the top right-hand side of all pages except the first. And it needs to be, again, in third person only. I've still had people, even on the SA3s that I've just kind of taken a glance at, some people are writing in first person. Like, I think these are different in this way. I don't want that. I don't want to hear about you at all. No offense. That's what the narrative was for. Now, the entirety of the research assignment is worth 825 points of our 2,000-point class. Woo! That is 41.25% of the grade for the class. So all things that are affected by the research paper, 41.25% of our grade. The planning and the presentation add up together to be 100 points, which is about 5% of your final class grade. The annotated bibliography for research paper is 100 points again, so 5% of your class grade. The peer review for the research paper is just another peer review, 25 points, which is 1.25% of the class grade. And then research paper itself is 600 points or 30% of the class grade. In other words, the research paper is worth, by itself, all 3 of your first 3 papers combined. So it's much more important to revise the research paper when doing revisions than it is any of the others. Especially since that'll help you be exempt from the final exam, more likely, if you revise it. Y'all remember that, right? Final exam, you're exempt as long as your essay average is 80 or higher. And with the revision, you can get that up easily. I'm almost tempted to wonder, like, should I provide, like, I guess I could. This would be very easy. The problem is, I think, did y'all ever have to take a BCIS class in high school? Business Computer Information Systems? Where you'd have to learn Microsoft Word, Excel. Did y'all actually listen and learn, or did you just do stuff? Did you copy paste it from somebody else? Because there's some very easy things that you can do here on Microsoft Word that I feel like I should tell you. Let's say Essay 1, Essay 2, Essay 3, Annotated Bibliography, Research Paper. And you can, I enter. I can just drag this here, and I can put the grades in these columns right here. So let's say that I have on the first paper, an 81. Second paper, I did a little better. I got an 84. Essay 3, not so great, 75. Annotated bibliography, I did really well because those are easy, 95. But on the research paper, I put all my work into that one, and I actually managed to get a 91 on that, so I was actually pretty happy with it. You can set up formulas in Excel that'll do everything for you. So if you want to find the average, you just need to have equals sum. Number 1 is, you want it to be B2 times 0.1 B3 times 0.1, B4 times 0.1, B5 times 0.05, because remember it's only worth 5%, not 10%, and then B6 times 0.3. Where's my typo? Yes. And this says 56.05, and I'll need to divide that number by 0.65, because that's the percentage, right? It's 65% of the 100 points of the class grade, so if I do that, it should give me the accurate average. So this person's average is an 86. Boom. I don't like all those decimals. Let's get rid of those. Boop, 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 boop. There. So it should, like, let's see. Theoretically, if I've done this correctly, if I type 80 into all these columns, it should come out to 80. 80. Y'all are all like desperately coveting this right now, aren't you? You're like, oh, I just want that. Can I just have it? Like Nichols just gave me, all I got to do is, oh, on my first paper I got a 70, and the second paper I got a 75, and the third I got a 80. In my annotated bib I got a 95. So what do I need to get to get one of the research papers so I get exempt without having to revise? And you can just start typing in numbers to guess. Do I have to have a 90? Nope, not even that high. 85? Nope, not even that high. 81? Slightly higher. 82? No, that was 92. 82? Oh, there's my sweet spot because he'll round 79.7 up to a B. So I got to have an 82. Y'all wish you could create these tools so quickly, don't you? You're like, wow, he just figured out this genius way to calculate my average in like 5 seconds. And now I'm going to minimize it and never let you see it again. Should I make that available? Like put that on Blackboard and you can download it and plug your numbers in? Do you not care that much? Y'all feel like you can do that by hand just as easy? I don't know. That's pretty freaking easy. It's just right there. You don't even you just put a number in and boom. Oh, that's not good enough. Need better. This is the problem. I was supposed to be talking about the research paper, and then something with math came up, and I got excited, and now I've been talking about math for 5 minutes. Guys, y'all got to stop me. Like, this is your responsibility. So I'll keep recording, but we won't be using this one. Let's see. The entirety of the research paper is worth that. You can calculate your average the way I told you. You can also calculate the average on the entire class, I guess, by building formulas like that. I mean, if you really wanted to. The problem is you don't know your connection grade. That's kind of something I tell you whenever we have grade conferences. Additionally, the presentation's a ways off, so you don't really know what that's going to be and all that kind of stuff. Let's see. This is the biggest assignment of the semester because it is meant to be the culmination of all you've learned. We just recently added sources, and so now we're doing lots of sources. Argumentation is going to be the last aspect of papers that we cover. It combines all the different types of writing processes. So I do have a couple of steps in the process to aid in your success. You'll have a conference with me to talk about your current class grade and basically find out what you would need on the research paper to do well. Then you'll submit your thesis and source for approval. So if I think that it's not a good topic, I'll let you know and tell you to pick another one. You'll be getting familiarized with your articles before being thrown directly into the paper's argument on the annotated bibliography. And just for your information, research papers copied and pasted from the internet at the last minute have had a 0% success rate in my class and are pretty much an instant zero. So just follow the steps. It's much easier. I check all papers for plagiarism before I even start grading. It's the first thing I do. So I have a pretty good process. I'm good at catching stuff. So just write your own thing. It's much easier. Step 1. You're going to choose a research topic. So this is a very, very broad topic, unlike the ones you've had before. You know, you had to choose a particular narrative topic for narrative 1. Essay 2, you had to do one of my little cause-effect topics. Essay 3, you were given some leeway because you had to choose 2 articles on some event of your choosing. This one's just very, very open and broad. You don't even have to do a news event. It can be just some issue in the world today. And I want you to go and choose a debatable research topic for research by visiting the Opposing Viewpoints Resource Center database from the PJZ database page. There's going to be a presentation given in class to explain how to access this database and choose a debatable topic for an argumentative style paper. But simply put, it's best to choose a topic with some degree of controversy surrounding it. You should give yourself ample time to search through the databases, as choosing a topic with a lot of freedom can be daunting, and there are literally hundreds of choices listed on the Opposing Viewpoints Resource Center database. I can just briefly take you back in case you haven't seen it in a while, you want to see it again, even if you don't want to. Go to the main website. It'll be good to have all this in the same place on a video. Did I tell you the other day that I see this in the corner of my eye, and I think it's an inappropriate image? Like, I look up here, I go quick links, and before my eye thinks that this is something bad, and I go, what? Oh, it's a thumb. Okay. It just freaks me out. every time. I just see like skin. I'm like, I don't even know what it is. It's just got to be bad. But so wary now that I like have to check my daughter's like laptop and stuff, and all the time I'm like having to look through her like history and see if she looked at bad things. I could admonish her for it. I don't tell her I do this, like a true good parent. Let's see, library services. Then I'm sure when she's 14, I'll hear, I hate you. Database is off campus. Again, we're not going to be reusing this recording. So you can use either database, Academic Search Complete, or Opposing Viewpoints Resource Center. And I've heard from some people that they say they've had more luck starting in the Opposing Viewpoints Resource Center database, but have ended up finding most of their actual research in the Academic Search Complete database. And I'll show you why. This one is more versatile once you know your topic and you're finding things. So if I type, I don't know, 9/11, which is a bad example. No, not 9/1. Nobody cares about that day. There was a day when something happened that nobody remembers. What? Why'd you open a new window? I don't care. Yes, we can. Yes, we did. Yes, we can. So you notice that it's much easier on this one to limit publication dates. Much easier if you have a more scientific topic, or really any topic that I prefer. People limit to scholarly and peer-reviewed journals. And so luckily I've limited it down to 6 million articles. Great. I could go with only stuff from the past 5 years if I really want to, get some good articles that are current. Now I've got it down to 1.7 million articles. Specifically, I want academic journal art. So you can see I can mess with the types of articles I'm getting much easier than I can with the opposing viewpoints. However, this isn't going to help me decide on my topic. That's not what this database is really good for. So my suggestion is starting out is you go down to Opposing Viewpoints Resource Center. If you have no idea what your interests are in the world, if all you do every day is not look at news sources to find out what's happening in the world, but your main thing that you do every day is get on Facebook. And that's your connection with the world. And I mean, you saw that little girl playing with the dogs in the field. Did anybody see that video? You didn't? No. You saw the meme of like the Beauty and the Beast, and it was like Christians outraged over gay character in film about woman buffalo romance. Anybody see that? Okay, apparently they all look at nothing, news or otherwise. Or if you're like my daughter, you saw something about pin, pineapple, apple pin. Anybody seen that? Okay, so that's apparently been seen. I don't know what she said's been happening the last couple days. It was something weird. I can't keep up with the stupid things kids look at. She's younger than you, I can say that. You're not stupid. You're older. You're mature. You have jobs. My daughter doesn't. But she probably should. She's only 12, but she's moving up. My suggestion is if you know what you want to talk about, like you're really into, let's say, something like gun control, then you can type that in and look at all the stuff that gun control has to offer. If you have no idea what you want to do, that could be many people, right? Like no idea what interest you have in the world or in things going on. Click Browse Issues. There are like hundreds of choices on here of issues going on in the world today. I do have a couple of restrictions, and I'll say what those are. And they might make a couple of people angry, but when you really think about what I'm trying to say, I think it makes sense why I've done this. My dad still contests that I'm wrong and shouldn't be making these restrictions. But one, I say you can't write your paper about physician-assisted suicide since that's the topic of the sample paper. So I don't want anybody to try to do that since that's already going to be covered and covered fairly well. So you'd be having to compete with it. Additionally, other hints I have for topics, I don't suggest picking anything like cancer as your controversial issue. For example, who in here approves of cancer? Like you're a cancer lover. Am I like cancer? Nobody?
What kind of question?
Nobody likes cancer. And that's kind of my point. People want to write papers on cancer. Nobody disagrees about cancer. What point are you going to prove? Cancer's bad. Oh, good job. I'm glad you spent 4 pages telling me that cancer was bad. Like it's a worthless paper to write. So you need to pick some controversial issue that needs to be something that people disagree about. That's what argumentation is you're trying to provide a point of view that others may disagree about that you're trying to prove is ultimately correct. And pretty much everyone agrees that cancer is a bad thing, so it's not exactly controversial. Also, and this may make some people angry, but I have a reasoning behind this. Don't pick any religious or paranormal ideas. The proof in those instances requires acceptance based on faith. And there's nothing wrong with each of us having our own personal religious beliefs, but if you're going to make a point in a paper, at least the types of paper I want you to do with your objective, I want it to be a universal and provable point through outside evidence that anybody could agree with regardless of faith, not something that's directed to a specific audience that would likely already agree with you anyway. In other words, don't create an argument that will only further convince those who already agree with you and ignore all the others who don't share that religious belief. Right as though anybody reading, regardless of religious beliefs, would be able to agree with your point without first having to accept a belief system or already be a part of it upon which the paper's argument is founded. And I want everybody to understand that I say this as personally, I am a Christian, but I think that this is a very important approach for making ideas universal to everybody. Really had trouble explaining this to my dad, but take a topic like gay marriage. You would need to prove that gay marriage is something that's not a good idea, like for the entirety of the United States, but without saying because God says so. You need to relate it to family dynamics, mental health of the mother and children, performance on things like education as they grow up, personal identity issues if there are any. You need to really look at those kinds of things and research from psychology, sociology, health, to get your point across. Because you don't want to just say, well, it's because God says so, and everybody who already agrees with you says, yeah, and everybody who doesn't agree with you goes, I now hate you more, and I'm less likely to agree with you in the future. That's not going to do anything for anybody. So you need to think about what is the other side thinking, the people who don't already agree with me, and how do I further convince people of that mindset to agree with the point that I want them. Because you think about being results oriented. Think about I want to achieve the results of somebody agreeing with my point, even if it's for the reasons that ultimately aren't the reasons that I think are the most important. So always approach every topic from that perspective. More hints. Make sure not to choose a problem in society that's already been solved. Needs to be some controversial topic that can be argued, not an undeniable fact. Like if you say, I don't want a paper on the Holocaust. We figured that one out. So if you can find something similar going on still in the world, like I think one time a student mentioned that there's still genocide happening in Darfur. So that would be something that you could talk about, but not the Holocaust. We fixed that one for the most part. Let's see. And once you've got your controversial issue chosen, and you've had that issue and thesis approved by me, you may recognize the need to concentrate more on the academic journals available on Academic Search Complete database, especially if you're writing on a topic within the sciences. Sometimes people choose things like cosmetic surgery and the issue that it has on people's identity. And much of the research done on cosmetic surgery is on academic journals. Because those are where you'll find the more scientific stuff. So you may have to go and do most of your research on that database instead. And in every single case, I know you did news articles for this last paper, but all you were doing is comparing why they wrote what they wrote, and if they were biased, that was fine. On this paper, you need to use almost exclusively academic journals. You might be able to get one newspaper article in there, but if any newspaper article is being credible, what it's going to be doing is referencing a source that it got its information from. You just need to go directly to that source. If some news article says a recent study has been published that states, go find the recent study that's been published. Don't get the information from the guy who got the information from somebody else. Go directly to the source. And the reason this can be problematic, anybody see in the news the other day about let me see. I've got the article that I saved it because I knew it would be useful for this class today. And I've got it very close at hand. So let's see. Seducing the Mind. Teachers have read it. Al Franken. Okay, did y'all happen to hear this story? Trump blamed Obama for 122 vicious Guantanamo Bay prisoners who have been returning to the battlefield.
Yes.
Right? But it turned out 113 of those prisoners were released by Bush. Only 9 were released under Obama, who have gone back into the battlefield. And what the news writer did was he said, actually, I think that number is inaccurate. And the problem was he was watching a Fox and Friends segment, because they've been able to link when Trump says things to immediately after Fox and Friends segments. They said that Guantanamo Bay prisoners have been released back, and then they did a news story over one of the ones that Obama had released back and how he'd gone back into war. And so Trump took that to mean that Obama had released all of them. However, most of them had been released under Bush, but they were just highlighting the one that was released under Obama. And so rather than check the source like Trump should have, he made that statement and went with what his instinct told him was the truth. But when you look at the Department of... Crap, what is it? I have the article here. It's Department of National Intelligence actually put out a government document that states, and I saved it here, it's a summary of the re-engagement of detainees formerly held at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, and then they have a chart with the re-engagement of former Guantanamo Bay Gitmo detainees as of 15th of July 2016. They have pre-22nd of January 2009 was 113 people. Post-22nd of January 2009 was 9 people. So that's the ones under Obama, and the previous ones were under Bush. Did I see a hand somewhere? Did somebody have a question? Thought I saw a hand. Well, if you think about it again, or you did have a question, go ahead and ask the question. But so it links to a government document. So it's best to always go to the sources than it is to trust a newspaper journalist. And I saw that news article, and I'm sure a lot of really liberal people went, yeah, Trump was wrong, without going and seeing what the reference was that showed whether or not he was. Because it very well could be a liberal writer saying, yeah, Trump's wrong. But if you don't go look, you can't really know for sure. So it's important to always look at the source material. And there's times where Trump has been right and wrong throughout his entire presidency, and the same with Obama. The key is always check the sources and find somebody who is an expert, more so than a news writer. So that's why I want people to mostly be using academic journal sources and sometimes government data, that kind of thing as well. So no more than one news source should be used ideally. Here's how you approach it. I've already shown you this in the other window, but main website, quick links, library services, databases, log in with your information, then opposing viewpoints, resource center, or academic search complete. And those are supposed to be in italics when you're doing works cited, but I just put them in bold so you'd know which ones to click. Now here's what the planning is. So before you actually write your paper, I think it's really important on a research assignment for you to propose your idea for me in case I think that there are some problems with it, or I think the topic's too big to do in 4 pages. Sometimes I'll have students say, Nichols, I think I really want to write my paper on politics. And I'm like, there's libraries written on politics. Like I can't, it's more specific. So I have people propose it. And the things I have you submit for proposal are 2. 1, the works cited page. And that's just the list of sources that you plan to use in your paper. They may be subject to change. And then your thesis proposal. That's the thesis you plan to prove in your paper. So whatever you think the point, based on the research you've read, what point you're going to end up trying to make, that's what you should propose. And you're going to upload the works cited page itself to Blackboard, properly formatted as a document upload. And then research paper thesis proposal, you'll actually, oddly enough, type it directly into the comments box. Not the submission box, but the comments box. And I'm about to show you why here in a few minutes. I want you uploading the works cited page, the tentative one, where it's subject to change, in docx or PDF format. And you'll need to have completed a certain amount of your research by this time. So if you try to just do the planning at 11 p.m. without having done any research, that's going to be kind of hard. So you need to have a works cited page with at least 5 articles of research, which may include academic journals, newspapers, magazines, but may not include viewpoint essays. Opposing Viewpoints has these non-credible sources called viewpoint essays under every single topic. So if I click abortion, the very first thing that pops up are featured viewpoints and viewpoints. Can't use those. They look really great on the surface. They say exactly what you want them to say in the title. They look so enticing. And you click them, and you go through them, and it's just this giant summary with a whole bunch of sources cited, but it doesn't actually say how they got their information. They just cite a bunch of sources at the end with no indication of where they come. There's no data they've come to. It's just like a giant summary of a piece of the argument. So I don't want you using those as sources. I want you to use things like the academic journals, the statistics. Sometimes primary sources can help, but I don't want you using only statistics sources. I want that to be supplemental to the academic journals that you have. So you still have to have 5 academic journal and newspaper sources and magazines, like written things. Additionally, audio would be supplemental and not a source material that you would use as one of your 5. Let's see. Now the thesis proposal, it's kind of simple in terms of what you'll need to prepare. You simply give what you think your research paper's thesis will be after having read your research. It'll only be the thesis and nothing more. It'll look something like this. American universities should provide free education in the form of grants to all first-year public higher education students in order to increase the amount of skill-based labor in the economy. So the thesis is a complex idea, but simply stated in one sentence that includes your topic, a debatable idea about that topic that could be controversial, and which your research paper will attempt to prove through logic, reason, and use of research. And it also needs to include a brief estimation of what that reasoning will be. So you notice that it doesn't just say, a bad thesis would be something like, universities should provide free education. That's not specific enough. You need to say something like, American universities specifically should provide free education in the form of grants to all first-year public higher education students. So you're limiting it to just the first-year students. And why are you doing that? Well, in order to increase the amount of skill-based labor in the economy. Okay, well, that's the reasoning behind it and why it's important. So there's got to be all those elements there, not just something very simple. Thesis. Your thesis should take a side on a controversial and current world issue. See the hints section of choosing a research topic for things not to choose. And then you will submit all portions of the assignment on Blackboard under the Assignments tab. This one's called Research Paper Planning, and you'll put the Works Cited page uploaded in your thesis in the comment box. This has a completion grade that counts 5% of the planning and presentation grade, or 5 points to the total 825 research paper point. You have to complete this step before I'll let you do the annotated bibliography or the research paper, so you must do this step first. And I will comment on the quality of your thesis and suggest possible changes. Let me show you basically how this works in case people want to start to try doing this over the break. I'm going to show you the very, very basics of it. So let's say that I've gone to this place, I've found 5 articles, I've now come up with a thesis based on those articles, and I'm like, okay, basically the research seems to point to this. And it's very important to read the research before you try to write the thesis, because you're going to want the research to be what you're using to help prove your point in your paper. And if you find 5 articles that disagree with the point you want to make, and you end up saying, well, I'm going to use these 5 articles, and they seem to say that I'm an idiot, but I really think they're wrong. I mean, that's not going to help you. Like, you're going to need at least 4 sources, I think, out of 5 that are going to support you entirely, and maybe 1 that shows the other side's points. But for the most part, you're going to want articles that only agree with you. And I one time had a student, I tell you about this guy, he said, I want to write a paper about how climate change is not happening, it's not dangerous, it's not a big deal. And I said, okay, now I must warn you. I said, you're going to need to find scientists who are saying this. I said, when you get on the databases, you may have difficulty. I don't know this off the top of my head, but you may have difficulty finding, and he submitted it like that. I said, you're going to have difficulty finding sources that agree with you, I think. And he got on and said, I looked through like hundreds of articles written by climate scientists, and none of them were saying that it wasn't real. And then it wasn't a problem. He said, so, and I was really impressed with this student. He said, I read some of them, and they made some pretty good points, and I've kind of reversed my stance. Can I write how climate change is real? And I was like, As long as you have the research to support it, yes. And since he had research to support it, he was able to. Now, there are lots of political academic journals that say climate change is not real. But depending on the topic, you need to go to the type of person who would know the most, which in that case is climate scientists. And unless there's a huge liberal conspiracy on climate scientists where they all just get together and say, we all agree on politics, let's just agree on this thing too. It's more likely to be able to trust whoever is an expert in that field, as opposed to somebody who's not. Let me see. So once I'm going to go on here and let's say submit this, I'll click the research paper planning, and I know I have to submit my works cited page. Let's make this a little smaller. So I'm going to browse my computer, and I've already got one ready to go, like a works cited page, so I'm just going to use it. And we'll create one for the class a little more later. See, 2016 fall, let's use that one. Research paper, works cited, boom. And let's see, I'm going to go ahead and take a look at that works cited too and see if I have the thesis already in there, because that'll be helpful. Yes. So some people will put it at the bottom of the works cited page, and that's fine, but I really want you to have it submitted, to be properly submitted, in the comments box. So I'm going to paste my thesis here in the comments box, click the agree checkbox, make sure my works cited is uploaded, and then this will happen. I'll hit submit, and what you should see in the viewer is on the left you'll see your list of works cited. It's going to take a second to generate the preview, but it will come up. On the right you'll see your thesis. So let me see, I should be able to hit, I don't have to hit refresh, it's already there. So here I see the sources, and I can look at those and go, yes, okay. And then I can look at the thesis over here and say, all right, do those articles seem to support that idea based on what I see here? Do they seem credible? Yes. And now the way I approach it when I'm grading them, this is something important for you to know. I give it a grade between 1 and 10. And it's already been submitted, so I'm going to blank this for a second, or freeze it. And I'm going to also pause the recording because I don't want to see, as a teacher, I see, all right, Baraka has submitted his research paper planning. Let's go grade this. And this is one where I tend to, as soon as they come in, I'm checking once a day. And as soon as they come in, I'm grading them as soon as they pop in, so I can get people on track for their research as quickly as possible. Also, they take like 2 minutes apiece to grade. So I can look at this and say, all right, sources look pretty good. And I might say something like, one of your sources doesn't seem to have an author, which worries me. And I can't tell that you're citing any arguments of those who don't agree with you. Your thesis, however, looks like it has enough detail. However, you may want to add a little bit of reasoning to it. Okay, and I might say that's the thesis is pretty good, but the fact that he's missing that one source is not good. So I might give him a 7 out of 10, okay? Now here's the issue, is I don't know if you happen to read down below what I had already said, but if we go back over here to Magnus Baraka, and he wants to go check his grades, and he sees, okay, research paper planning is done, and you could click this, but it's just going to bring up a box with your feedback, and you probably, once you submitted that thing, forgot everything you'd done. So you're like, I don't remember what my sources were in my thesis. I don't know what this means. So you're probably just going to want to click on the assignment itself and go right back to it, because then you'll get to see on the left this, on the right the thesis you had, and then below that my comments. It'll show feedback to learner. Once he sees he's got a 7, he's like, oh crap, I better revise this and resubmit it, and here's why. The assignment says, if you receive a 10 or a 9, you may proceed with your essay. Anything 8 or below requires a revision before moving forward with the essay, because receiving a 10 means I assume the highest grade you'll receive with your current thesis or work side would be 100, so basically 10 times whatever you got. If it's a 9, I assume the highest grade you'll get will be in the 90s based on what I see. If it's an 8, it means the highest thing I think you'll get will be in 80s, 7, 70s, etc. And like if you get a 1, means I think, well, they'll probably get like in the 10 or the teens. So definitely need to revise that. So any grade you get, it's not 9 or 10, you probably should make a small revision and resubmit just to be sure that I've said that based on what I see, I think you will end up getting somewhere in the area of an A, or at least that's the highest you could go, because that's where you want to get, right? A's. And so I would always resubmit if you don't see a 10 or a 9. And the reason I don't give a 10 or a 9 means I feel that there are significant problems that still exist with your proposal, and that would give problems to the research paper as well. So that's why I would say to do it that way. So then you take a look and figure out what the feedback is and say, oh, okay, yeah, my article's missing an author. That's going to be problematic, so I should go look for another one just to be sure. Thank you, Nichols, for that help. Or I hate you, Nichols, how dare you? You know, whatever it is that you say to approach that. Let me go back to the assignment here. Let me deal with the other aspects of this. And I'm going to spend the most time on the planning because that's what's going to be the first step in y'all's process anyway. So I'm going to briefly go over each one of the rest of these. The annotated bibliography, essentially what that is like you take your list of works cited, and underneath each one of your works cited entries, you're going to write a paragraph that's about 100 to 125 words long. It's a very small, like 7 or 8 line paragraph. And it's going to be a summary of each article. So you're going to have a citation, then a summary of that article. Addition to the summary, in that paragraph, you're going to have comments on the quality of that article's argument and things like, is it biased? How credible is the article? So you're going to assess the quality and be summarizing it in that paragraph below the article. And you're going to do that for 5 different articles. You can go up to 8, but I prefer people not do more than 8, and you're only required to do 5. Again, you can't do viewpoint essays, and you could do either Opposing Viewpoints Resource Center or Academic Search Complete, depending on where you end up getting your articles. But each one of those paragraphs is called an annotation. And so this means that the length of the paper could go anywhere between 625 with 5 125-word annotations all the way to 1,600 words if you did 8 200-word annotations. But honestly, 200 words is pretty much too long. I just include it in case you have to go that long. If an abstract's provided, you can't copy it. You got to write your own summary. I don't want you to make any comments about whether or not the article was fun to read or if the author was right about what they're saying. Like if you say, well, the author says that abortion should be illegal, and so he's right. Well, I mean, I don't want you to say that. I want you to say, does the guy make good points? And that goes for those who think that abortion should be illegal, or should be legal or illegal. Don't just say that somebody's got a quality argument because it agrees with you. We shouldn't even know as readers what your standpoint is on the issue. Personally, we should only know what you're proving through argument. And on the annotated bibliography, we shouldn't know at all because you're just saying, well, this is a well-written article. If you forget the works cited entries and you only include the summary, it's an instant 0 until you provide the works cited entries. Let me go down to the peer review. Y'all are familiar with that, so I'm not going to spend any time on that. It's just another one of those. But we have a little more time with each article, or with each paper. And then the research paper itself will be due on week 12, day 2. Using research materials in a well-developed thesis that you've gotten approved by me, you'll write a research paper which supports that thesis about a topic from the Opposing Viewpoints Resource Center. Sources can also be found at the Academic Search Complete database. This research paper must be at least... Oh, I forgot the other parenthesis. Oh. Now that's really going to bother me. I'm going to have to go up there. I'm going to have to literally go in and change it at some point. It also bothered me that that out parenthesis was not it was italicized when the other one wasn't. I fixed that too. You're going to need to organize this paper exceedingly well, have a clear thesis, use at least 5 sources that are articles from the annotated bibliography, and these sources must be cited internally through in-text citations and follow MLA style. Have to do both of those things. Now, I know you're mentally doing this, so I'll go ahead and do this for you right now. There you go. Remember that it's important that each paragraph of your research paper work to advance your thesis in some way, so don't rant, don't go off topic, stay on topic. If you introduce any kind of background-related concepts, make sure it works to serve the thesis. If you use a long quote, make sure it works to serve the thesis. Don't ramble. Keep control of your words. I know it's ironic that I'm saying that. Hopefully, proposing your thesis early will allow me to help you decide on a topic that will better serve a paper this length. Additionally, annotated bibliography will help you be well acquainted with your research beforehand, so the paper will be that much easier to write. On Blackboard, you'll need to have your works cited included as part of your research paper document. A lot of students will try to upload 2 different documents, so you have the research paper and the works cited separately. I don't want that. I want you to paste it to the end of your research paper and include that as one document, because it's almost impossible for me to grade if they're not done that way, and I'll actually ask you to resubmit if it's not done, where the research paper and the works cited are in the same document. I will not go back to your research paper planning and look at your works cited there. You know, just figure it out. And I'll be showing you in class. It'll be on a video, so you'll have no excuse. Haha. Now, title it research paper. Give it a title that kind of shows what your thesis is going to be. An equal opportunity future, funding grants to increase the labor force for the American economy. That kind of hints toward what the thesis is. I need to have a page number at the top right corner of every page except the first one. Works cited. You have to have a works cited page with each of the 5 or more sources being listed in MLA citation form in alphabetical order. The grading criteria is pretty broad, but have a clear thesis, support that thesis through convincing argument, support the argument through adequate and appropriate use of sources, have a complete works cited page in MLA style, contain deft use of in-text citation, and correctly cite at least 5 sources, and satisfy the length. Now, hints. Number 1, this topic must be controversial and the thesis as well, not something that's an undeniable fact. Like blood is necessary to the function of a human body. That's true. Has been for a long time. Don't need that one. Pick something else. Research must be valid research, not websites without authors obtained from a simple Google search. 3, works cited page is absolutely necessary as well as internal citation because otherwise your paper is not a research paper. Properly citing the research is what lends credibility to every bit of your argument. If you fail to include either the works cited page or internal citation, one or the other, or both, you will instantly reduce your grade to a 0. I will not grade your paper until both items are supplied, regardless of how early it's submitted. You may submit it tomorrow, but if there's no internal citation and works cited page, I'm not going to grade it. I'm going to say 0, provide this, then I'll grade it. It prevents plagiarism and makes sure that you're actually writing a research paper and not just a paper. I feel like there's something I didn't say that I put on here somewhere about choosing topics. Where was my step 1 to choose a topic? Oh yeah, totally skipped one of my sentences. Way back up here. But another thing that I want to say about topics not to choose. Oh yeah, once I talked about climate science, I just skipped. No more than one news source should be used ideally per research paper, and I'll tell you more about that in a few weeks. And also, don't approach this like a report. You're making an argumentative point. You're going to be trying to convince the reader to believe a certain thing about a topic. I don't want you to report anything to me. You're making a logical argument about some controversial issue that's not been solved yet. That's why I don't want you telling me the history of the Holocaust. That's a report, where you're reporting to me things that others have said, but saying nothing. You're on your own. So you have to be making some argumentative, logical point that you're trying to get the reader to agree with using good evidence. Now let's see. This just basically says, I'm going to return your research paper to you as quick as I can. This says then you'll have to revise it before week 14, day 2. There's a comment about Thanksgiving, which we don't have, but I always just put a strikeout because it is relevant in Thanksgiving semesters. But just know that it's struck out, so it doesn't apply to you. Then we'll have a research presentation. I'll give way more detail on that later. I'll show you a video of a sample presentation, so you'll know kind of how to approach it. And it's quite easy. You basically just have to say how you came up with your topic, what each one of your articles is about briefly, then say what your thesis was. That's so simple. I'm not grading it like it's a speech teacher grading it. I'm grading it like it's an English teacher grading it, so you don't have to worry about a lot of those like speech teacher things. Very easy to get a good grade on that. Here's what an annotated bibliography looks like roughly. So you see I've got my works cited entry. Then I've got a paragraph, where I'm summarizing. I'm actually not doing this as a student did this, but summarizing the article and talking about the qualities in the article that make it worth reading. So he says, the article appears to have written at the end of 2009, so the information may be a little outdated since benefits have not been found since then. He says that he prevents transition very well because she gave each its own section. Does this, she makes claims about this and this and notes the lack of solid evidence. So he's talking about quality while he's also summarizing. He does that for all 5 of his articles, and has articles from both the opposing viewpoints and the academic search complete database. So I wanted to provide examples of both. I believe later on we're actually reading this article in class, so I'm not going to show you like the whole read through right now. We'll do that later. But I will show you how I approach the grading of this paper, so to show you exactly how important it is to have the internal citation and works cited in place. He's got a good thesis, which is always what I check for. Individuals who are terminally ill with no outstanding psychological issues, capable of making the decision on their own, should have the right to undergo assisted suicide. These are people with a death sentence who should be able to take both life and death to their own hands. Okay, so I guess that's the extra reasoning he didn't provide earlier, so good job on him for providing it in the revision. Then he starts going through his articles and using those to help prove his point, which is good. But the first thing I always do is I go directly down to the works cited page before I've read a word of the paper. And I'll look to make sure he cited all of his sources. So I'm going to type Buca Ferni. Yep, that's in there. Type Cavani. Yep, that's 2. 2 sources used. Making. There it is, quoted in Making. So that's the article title starting with Making. That's 3. Matlin. I don't see this one being used. That's still only 3. McManaman. That's a funny name. That one's used in there. And see, it's not an internal citation, but in like parentheses, but that still counts as internal citation because he's mentioning the author within the text of the, I didn't mean to say Arthur, I'm sorry, author, within the text, which is what you're supposed to do. So that's 4. Cites him a lot. And then is he citing the preface? Yep, he cites the preface. So he cites 5 total. I don't know why he included that extra article. Maybe he'll tell me later. But at least he has done 5 that are cited internally, and that's all I need to get started. At this point, I've checked the internal citation to make sure it's there and the works cited. Now I will start grading. If you're missing one or the other, or you're missing in fact, if you forget to cite more than 2 sources, so I only see you've cited 3 within the body, I'll go ahead and do that thing where I say, here's your 0. Please submit all the sources internally cited. You've forgotten a few. If it's just 1, I'll just start reading and count off 20 points for that missing source. 20. So include them all. Moral of the story here. Then I'll start reading, and I'll show you what I said when I read his paper. I said, really great work. The only issue I have is you spend perhaps too much time ending paragraphs on quotes rather than providing some sort of commentary. You also seem to spend a little too much time clarifying the opposition's points without giving equal or superior space to those who agree with your contention. I would have preferred academic journal sources exclusively, but your arguments are pretty solid. And that was at a time where I let them use more news sources, but the further I get through time, the less and less I trust the news, and more I trust scientists who have no personal interest and people who spend their whole lives studying political science to the point where they're almost, like sometimes like the way nurses after a while and doctors look at injured people, they're just looking at, okay, this needs to be fixed, this needs to be fixed. And they say that a lot of doctors develop a very bad bedside manner as a result, but they're trying to save lives. So they're just focused on, okay, they're ignoring the fact the person's crying and going, okay, they're bleeding from here, this needs to be stitched up, this needs to be sutured, we need to make that happen fast, get them some blood. They're just thinking about the things that are necessary because they're not emotionally attached anymore. And that's almost how like the people who spend their whole lives studying a particular thing, they are with whatever they do. Climate scientists, they're not like, man, I really need climate change to be a thing. They're just like, okay, I looked at these numbers and these numbers and these numbers, and they all point toward this. And that's what they do every day and have done for a long time. So you look at the things that those people are doing, and it's a little sketchier when we're talking about people who do for a living political science, because then they're probably going to be, you're going to have, if they are already a Republican, they're just going to be researching how to be more of a Republican. And if they're a liberal, they're going to be researching more how to be a liberal, which is going to be the case. So it's kind of hard there, but otherwise pretty good to go with academic journals. And I said that the text above has a word count of 1,589 words. That was actually written when 1,500 was the word limit and not 1,250. So don't feel like you have to write something quite that long. But do note that you need to have more academic journal sources than that student did. And there's citations. I gave you one that was an example. It showed you like regular website addresses. Actually, no, I don't have any of those. I only have ones from databases. So if you want to know how to do just general website sources, you have to do that on your own, at your own peril. Because remember, I consider academic journals to be superior to just random website called How We Know Water's Dirty. I'm like, oh, let's just go there. Oh, yeah, it's dirty water. It's not a good approach. You should always approach it from like somebody who's done some research. And I've got, for Academic Search Complete, you need to provide accession numbers so I can get directly to that article. Gale database, you provide the Gale numbers. This one I left here because it was a source that he cited, but I did not update the MLA because that article is no longer in the database, so I couldn't access it. And not all his sources appeared in his paper. He actually got my permission to do that. He consulted one but said, I don't think I use anything directly, but I know that I read it and it probably affected me. So I said, that's fine. You can use it in that case. And also, you'll see a lot of these horizontal bars throughout the paper. You don't have to do those. Those are only for me to separate sections. So don't feel like you need to include black bars in your research paper. I have the peer review sheet at the end, but you don't have to print out a copy of that. It's just I'll provide it the day of. And then as we get closer, we'll actually read the annotated bibliography and we'll read the research paper for the details within it, but not right now. Just concentrate on finding a topic, which I'll get more into, but it's essentially just this. Let's look through the topics and find something good here. So if I were you, maybe what you do, the first thing you do is just kind of go through here and look for something you find interesting. And no conspiracy theories. I don't think I mentioned that, but I don't want to hear like, I think Casey Anthony murdered her kid. Like, I don't care. Like, that's not going to help the world if you find that out. If you figure out who really killed John Benet Ramsey, that's not going to solve the world's problems. Let the police do that. You try to solve the actual real issues that the world has today. Racism, drugs, sex abuse, child abuse, domestic perils, discrimination against women. By the way, it's International Women's Day.
I know.
Yesterday was Pancake Day.
Yeah.
Really weird those fall like right next to each other.